come up with different sort of safe physical activities at home that you can do with your son.
We can use various oromotor exercises. We can make the child smell all kinds of food that we are cooking.
अगर आप ये 1 लीटर पानी में 1 चम्मच डालेंगे, उसे अच्छी तरह से उबाल के रात भर रहने दीजिए, दूसरे दिन छान के बच्चे को वो पानी पिलाइए, तो इससे भूख भी अच्छी बढ़ती है.
If you are having fibroids repeatedly and you've already undergone one surgery, it does not mean that you cannot conceive. You can.
So the baby weight is, it depends on the weight and build of the mother. So a mother who is small in build, short in height and very thin may have a very low baby weight and still the baby weight would be normal.
Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to you on this Parentune Live. I hope you and your family are doing well. My name is Shalini and I'm your host for today. Today, we are joined by Parentune expert, Dr. Vidya Ganpati. And we're going to learn on how to manage your child's mood swings and channelize them positively. Thank you, Dr. Vidya, for joining us today. Dr. Vidya, what leads to frequent mood swings in a 3 to 7-year-old child?
Yes, thanks. It's again good to interact with the parenting community. Now the topic for today is mood swings. So there can be various reasons as age-wise, like you correctly asked. So for a 3 to 7-year-old child, I think the brain is developing at such a rapid pace, right? So it could be different needs at different points in time. For a 3 to 7-year-old child, first, it could be, are their basic needs at that time, at that moment, not being fulfilled? Like, for example, if they have been sleep deprived for that night, they have stayed up late and not had the usual hours of sleep, they could have a big up and down in their mood, right? If typically parents may have noticed that around the time they are hungry and they are not able to verbalize it sometimes because they're so busy with their play, they're so busy with their other activities, then that it could be a trigger. So some of these basic needs are the ones which could likely be a cause for could trigger a mood swing in a 3 to 7-year-old child. And then, of course, there is the role of conditioning. How is the parenting going on? How is the disciplining going on in the house? So I think these are some of the factors which we can look for so that we are able to adjust them and modulate them better to decrease the mood swings.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, it's also very important to recognize the signs that a child may go through a bad mood phase. Could you throw some light on recognizing the signs?
Right. So I think it's like you said rightly, it's very important before it escalates into a huge tug of war. I think it's important to recognize the early signs. So is a child getting a bit cranky? Is a child just started to say no? It's not his usual temperament, because I think every parent knows their child's temperament well. And if you can spot that there is something different happening here, so this could be an initial sign, an early sign which you could catch early on and deal with it in a much better way at that point. If the child is, or if it could also be if the child is saying, "Oh, please," the child could say, "Please don't interact with me now." The child is clamming up, the child is not sharing as he was before. So this could also be an initial sign that he is going to get irritable, that he is going to have a massive upswing in his mood.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, I'm going to start taking questions, and Shweta Kumar is our first parent. Shweta's son is 4 years, 10 months. Shweta says he has frequent mood swings and without any reason. He becomes extremely impulsive and reacts in an opposite manner. For example, if I say up, he'll say down. If I say it's day, he'll say it's night. He's always contradicting with me. Even for a few minutes, he gets very cranky and then he suddenly becomes normal. So, this off and on of behavior is also very frequent. Please help me. What should I do?
Right. So, Shweta, your child is 4 years old. So, here, like I said, the brain is developing at such a rapid pace. So, though you may not perceive an immediate reason, an immediate trigger for his mood swing, you may, if you actually sit down and take some time to analyze it, maybe you could figure out that there is something happening, because there is always a felt need which the child is not able to convey as a need. For example, he may not be able to say at that point that he is hungry, that he is tired. So typically we tell to look for some things, that is hunger, anger, lonely, or tired. Right. So is a child having any of these? These are the basic things. Like for a smaller baby, you check if the baby is dry, if the baby is hungry, right? So for typically for a 4-year old, these are the four things you need to first rule out. Is the child hungry, angry, he's feeling lonely, he just wants a hug, or is he basically tired? Because the physical activity, has he had an excessive burst of physical activity and then he's feeling tired? So possibly these are what you need to rule out first. And children typically, they tend to get a bit, they go through these phases where they could be contradicting you, so you may feel that at every point that you're saying day, he's saying night, and why is he acting like this? So believe me, he's not doing it just for the sake of contradicting you. There is some felt need which he is not able to express, and if you could build up your connection, if you could build up the communication channel and try and figure that out, I think that will really help in managing the mood swings of your child better. And maybe you could just tell him, yes, I know you're feeling a bit cranky. So just labeling that emotion, just empathizing with that emotion at that time also can help him opening up and communicating better on what is exactly going on in his mind at that time.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Hope you have listened to what Dr. Vidya said, and please do write back to us, Shweta, in case you have any more questions. Dhwani Shah is an ex-parent, and Dhwani says, my son just turned 4 this month. Lately, he has been irritating my elder daughter, who's 8 years old, to the point that he makes her cry. He literally does not let her do anything. He disturbs her while her online classes are on, doesn't let her eat anything, and does not let her even study. Her annual exams are starting soon, and it is becoming quite of a challenge for me to control my son's behavior towards his sister. Please tell me, what should I do?
Okay, so hi Dhwani, you are having two, one a 4-year-old and one is an 8-year-old. And now what is maybe lately it could have been happening more, that your 4-year-old is maybe has become very clingy, and he wants the 8-year-old's time. So and nowadays what has happened is, again, because the children are at home, so they're not getting much time to interact with their same aged peers. Possibly they're not getting time to expend that energy in school or at the playground. Possibly they're not getting to do that. So what is the next recourse they take to? What is the next action recourse they can do? Is whoever is at home, that's typically your 8-year-old daughter, so he is turning to her and he is trying to irritate her, nag her. You are perceiving it as he is, from what I hear, he's being quite disruptive and bothering her a lot. And possibly she has a lot of commitments on her time, because for 8-year-olds nowadays, there is so much of academics. And like you said, the annual exam is approaching. Now here I think it is important to see how are you or how are the other family members dealing with it? Has it been that you need to check that, have you condoled him till now? Have you said, okay, he's small, so have you told your 8-year-old to adjust because she's bigger, and have you told her, okay, he's small, so maybe he has got used to that, that you are ready to make more excuses for him. So if you could avoid that, if you could clearly communicate to him that um, she needs her time and space, and if you could also have a time where the two of them are spending some time together, and you could even give them an activity, or they could plan it out. Maybe he does something of his interest one day, something of her interest the other day, and that is more in a structured time where he has some time with her, so that he doesn't feel that he's not getting any time with her the whole day. Maybe you these are some of the small steps you could take. And of course, see if you can give them, each of them, some one-on-one time yourself, right? So that you are doing one activity with him, you are doing something with him, so that he also feels wanted and special, and you are doing something with her also, which could be her studies if you're taking it at that time. But the point is that give each of them some me time. So these are some steps which you could try out.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, this question makes me ask you, what is the role of friends and peers when it comes to the mood swings of children, and specifically for a 3 to 7 year old child?
Children nowadays, unfortunately, their what is their area of work? There's a playground. They are supposed to be out there playing. They are supposed to be going to school, most of which is not happening. So all the typical peer interactions, where they are learning, where they are supposed to be learning their social skills, where they are supposed to be picking up all those face-to-face skills, none of these activities are unfortunately been happening over the last 1 year. And I think this is having a very important role to play in the mood swings which children are having, in the temper tantrums which children are having. So if you could, for a 3 to 7 year old, if there are some ways where you could arrange for them somehow to interact with each other, for them to go outdoors and spend some time, for them to get some physical activity and expend their energy. So I think if you are able to balance out all these things, it is very important. And this, like you said, the friends, the peers, these are very important at this age. So of course, you need to pay attention that they are getting a balance of all of it, not just academic activities, not only screen time. So it's very important that they have a balance of different activities um, in their daily schedule, right?
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. If you've just joined this Parent Tune Live, we are with child and family psychiatrist Dr. Vidya Ganpati to learn how to manage your child's mood swings and channelize them positively. You can ask your questions in the comment section and we'll take them up in a short while. Dr. Vidya, Vara Lakshmi has a 4 years, 6 months old child, and Vara Lakshmi says she's very proactive and very much interested in exploring and always interested to play. However, due to the pandemic, she has become very moody. Though I spend time with her, she has sort of lost her interest in doing things. She doesn't seem interested in anything. She says, and she misses her school, although she does attend online classes, but she really misses the school. In fact, what's happening is that the kind of food that she used to love earlier, she does not even like that food now. What do I do to help her?
Right. So, Varalakshmi, this has been actually happening over the last 1 year, because things have been stretching. Unfortunately, the pandemic has been stretching, and a totally different and an unnatural scenario has been stretching out for these kids for a year now. right? So in the beginning, I think even parents were they would try and do something with the child. They would try and channelize the child's energy in a more positive way. But now even parents are actually at their wits end. How long to keep the child engaged? How to keep the child engaged? How to keep coming up with so many different activities, right? Uh, that said, is your child, I hope she is also not, you have said she's been having appetite changes, right? You, is she also having, I hope she's not also having some sleep disturbances. That could be a sign of a more pervasive thing which you would need to look into, right? But I think for some important things which you could see that she has, see if you can structure her day. I think structuring the day is something which has really helped a lot of parents, because children are very much creatures of routine, right? So they are not having the usual structure which they had. Then they would go to school, they would spend some 3-4 hours, maybe half an hour traveling, 3-4 hours at school. So that was automatically a kind of structure was coming in. So with online school, they are in the same environment the whole time, and then they are left to their own devices the rest of the time, right? So see if you could structure her day so that she knows what she can look forward to from time to time. See that you include, maybe you could make it a game, especially if she's not eating things which she liked. So maybe you could make it something like a game that you sit together and say that, yes, today we have your favorite, tomorrow we have our favorite, your husband's favorite, So if you could make it like a game, see if you could involve her in doing the shopping for the vegetables, for the grocery, so that she feels more in control. She feels that she is also a part of the whole daily routine which is happening. So maybe this would help in bringing her appetite back, right? See if you can get her to do some small activities that will help in improving her motor skills also. Maybe even just helping with the vegetables, not exactly chopping because she's too small, but if she can remove the leaves, or the small methi leaves, or so that keeps her engaged also. It keeps her involved in what you are doing, and of course she learns the importance of helping and spacing out. So you can include that also in the structure.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, next question is from Nisha Trivedi, and Nisha has a 2-year-old daughter. Thank you, Nisha, for asking this question. Dr. Vidya, this question is not very exactly around our topic, but Nisha is actually live watching this, so I'd like to take this one. Nisha says, my daughter used to cry a lot even in sleep. She just cries a lot every time, and she further adds that even in sleep she cries. She's too attached to me, so much that she does not leave me for a second. She does not play with toys also. All she wants and all she does is sit with me and does not do any other thing. Please tell me, how do I handle this situation?
Yeah, so hi Nisha. A 2-year-old, a clingy 2-year-old can be a bit tough to handle. I'm sure you're finding yourself at your wits' end. Here, I think we would like to go into details of her milestones, if all her milestones are normal, because typically she should have got over the separation anxiety, the stranger anxiety phases, right? And she should be interacting more with other people. But if she's clinging on to you 24/7, is her other what are her babbling, her speech milestones, her other motor milestones, her social milestones? I think we would like to go into the details of those more. If she is crying in her sleep, what is happening to disturb her sleep? Because sleep is it's a very restorative, and for a child of this age, 14 to 16 hours of sleep is very essential, right? So if she's crying in her sleep, what is exactly bothering her? Is it some problem with the sensations around? Is she having some sensory integration issues? I think we will need to go into more details of this before we can answer this question on why a 2-year-old is so clingy and not ready to interact with anyone else.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Nisha, hope you've heard this. You can write back to us with more details. You can also ask your questions on our app, and our expert can answer that. I move on to Ramani's question, and Ramani says Ramani has two children. One is an 8-year-old and one is 4 years old. Ramani says, my elder son is 8 years old. One moment he would be fine playing with his 4-year-old sibling, and the other moment he would start shouting at him loudly or hitting him badly. Then he would not talk to anyone for an hour or two. Again, after a few hours, he would start hitting his brother for no rhyme or reason. His younger brothers is also getting aggressive due to all this repeated behavior of the elder one. I've tried talking to my elder one quite a number of occasions, but he doesn't understand and repeats this behavior. How do I deal with his mood swings?
Okay, so Ramani seems to be having a tough job on her hands uh, with an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. Now, I think we know of smaller children they're having mood swings. It is very commonly we call them as temper tantrums, we call them as terrible twos. And then we also know that the teenagers, as they are approaching the tweens and teens because of the hormonal changes, they tend to have mood swings. Now, a lesser known or a lesser talked about fact is that uh, up to 2 years before they go into their tweens, that is typically at this age of 7 to 9 years, they also enter into something called as adrenarche, which is not very commonly known because it is again a hormonal change because of which they can have a lot of ups and downs in their mood, right? Maybe one way is to just teach him some techniques to handle his mood better. Maybe you can say that he can express with his words. You give him that train because obviously he's speaking at 8, right? So rather than showing his aggression or showing his anger in his behavior, tell him that it is okay. Empathize. Tell him it's okay to feel angry, but it is not okay to hit. It is not okay. So you set the limits, right? So you teach him that this is an appropriate expression of your anger, while this is not an appropriate expression, and this is something which should not happen, which does not happen. So if you can, and for the first thing, you empathize with him. Oh, you are feeling a bit uppity, you're feeling a bit angry at this moment, right? When you are able to recognize, if you're able to recognize that yes, he's going to get triggered at this time, maybe you give him an option that would you like to go to some place, would you like to sit, and you can designate a place rather than a timeout. We call it a time in. So if would you like to sit there till you calm down? So you can give him some activity maybe to do with his hands. So typically we teach children about how they can maybe count till 10, take some breaths, or do something with their hands. They touch this finger to this finger, so something like that till you calm down. So you give him that option. Tell him that it's okay to feel angry, but there are better ways of expressing that anger, and train him on those ways. I hope those help.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. That was very helpful. Dr. Vidya, what are some things that can aggravate the mood swings of a child?
Right. If we are talking about aggravators, I think typically the parental reaction can aggravate, because if we tend to enter into a tug of war and we say no, you can't do this, so he's already in an irritated mode, and then we kind of enter into a tussle, we enter into that, and so he's already in the red zone, right? So he is right up there. So that could be an aggravator, right? If we give him a lecture at that time, so I don't think the brain is trained to understand. When you are already in a red zone, the brain is not going to understand any explanation even at that time, right? So we need to figure out what is the right time. When the child is calm is when we can actually tell him that this is not acceptable behavior. So we need to figure that out. I think that's very important. And the brain is, like I said, it's developing so much. The prefrontal cortex is still maturing, so you don't expect a small child child to have that degree of understanding and maturity. That's why they are children, right? So I think we need to get all this clear in our head. What are the milestones? What are the emotional wise? What are the milestones? What are they going through at this point in time? Typically, because the external scenario is so different from what it should be ideally for a child. Another very important thing I have seen in a lot of clients coming in is that there is lack of physical activity because of online school, all activities happening online. So please do check, are they having some physical activity, at least half an hour to 1 hour of physical activity, because that can be just sitting there. So you are getting all your kick from the screen. Again, very important. This is an aggravator. This, over the last 1 year, this has been a huge aggravator, right? So I've always been an advocate for the lesser screen time, the better. And unfortunately, so kids are having everything online these days, right? The school is online, the other physical activities, if they're doing anything of that, is all of it is online. So please check that, are you including some physical activity in his routine, in the structure which we are planning, something which he likes, where he can get those naturally, he can get those chemicals running, which will help to regulate his mood better. Are you restricting the screen time? Do you have a family vision on screen time? These are some aggravators which we need to check out for, and keep them in check, so that the child, we can, so these are the things we can do to help to control the child's mood swings much better.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya, and thank you for emphasizing on the importance of physical activities. In fact, I was about to ask you that question, but thank you for covering that already. Dr. Vidya, the child may not listen to the parent in such a situation when they are going through a bad mood phase. Now, how can a parent make the child listen to them at that point of time?
Okay, so like I said, when the child is in the red zone, so if you see the model of the brain, his brain has already flipped. So at that time, I don't think you can actually make him listen and do what you want him to do at that time. So the best thing you can do at that time is tell him that, okay, we can talk when you are in a calmer position. You can help him get into a calmer position by, please, not lecturing him at that point in time, but rather saying that, yeah, would you like to take 2 minutes to calm down, and then we can talk, right? So the more you are going to enter and try and make him do what you want exactly at that point in time, right, the more that flip brain is going to react, and then the temper tantrum can really escalate out of control. So I think, as adults who are having a more mature prefrontal cortex, I think it is very important for adults to enter, to be in the calm zone themselves when the child is in the red zone, right? If both of you are in the red zone, it's just going to be a tug of war. It's just going to be an escalation of the entire situation, right? So at that point in time, you can't exactly make him listen to what you want to do, but you have communicated before. It's very important to communicate before, that if he is going to do this, this is a natural consequence, and carry through that consequence so that he knows. I'm not talking about punishment, please, but I'm talking about a natural consequence. Like if he is repeatedly hitting, like for example, we just saw an example. So if he's hitting, so he gets a natural consequence of that, so he doesn't get time to play with his older sister. So these, and these have to be communicated and carried through. Communicated before, so that there are lesser and lesser incidences of these mood swings occurring, and carried through, so that the child knows that this is what is he has to expect if he consistently or repeatedly behaves in that way.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. If you've just joined this Parent Tune Live, we are with child and family psychiatrist Dr. Vidya Ganpati, and we're learning how to manage your child's mood swings and channelize them positively. You can ask your questions in the comment section and we'll take them up in a short while. Dr. Vidya is going to cover some effective strategies for parents to help their child with mood swings, some do's and don'ts, so please stay tuned on this live. Pratiksha Pawas has a 5-year-old, and Pratiksha says, My 5-year-old son is not able to sleep properly at night. He would keep on tossing and turning on the bed. Due to improper sleep, he's very moody during the day and throws a lot of tantrums. To get a small task done by him involves a lot of requests, kisses and hugs, and so on and so forth. Sometimes I lose my patience. How do I deal with his mood swings? Suggest me how can I make him sleep on time as well.
Right. So, Pratiksha, one thing you need to check is your child having a lot of screen time, especially before bedtime? Because even the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that 2 hours before bedtime there should be a total switch off of screens, because the blue light emitted by all our gadgets is something which interferes with the sleep wake cycle. It interferes with melatonin secretion. So that is one thing you need to check on. See if you can have a excuse me, see if you can have a bedtime ritual. See if you can put in some sleep hygiene practices, where some of them, if you're just reading them a bedtime story, if you are some of them, even if you give them a relaxing bath before going to bed. So these are all sleep hygiene techniques which we follow, right? So see if you can implement some of these. Some of them, they benefit from a glass of warm milk, or these are some of the techniques which you should try and see which works for your child. But of course, I don't need to emphasize here that a good sleep is very, very essential at this age. Otherwise, it's quite natural that your child is getting so cranky, and he is not listening, and you need to put in so much of extra effort to get him to listen to you, to get him to do this. So I think these things are very important, where you set up these sleep hygiene techniques, and then gradually you will see that he is getting a better sleep, and automatically the frequency of his tantrums is decreasing. So you need to balance this out.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Monica Sharma has a 7-year-old, and Dr. Monica says, "My daughter, while playing, gets angry for her turn in games. She's like, 'It's my turn, let me play,' and all sorts of things. How to tell her to relax and accept happily with peers?"
Okay, so I think Monica, sometimes we expect too much of our children, of our small children, right? We expect them to share, we expect them to take turns, and which they are not naturally, depending on the age, because she's just 5, right? So that sense of independence, that sense of asserting that this is mine and this is yours, that's all just coming up, right? So I think we you need to definitely explain it. Maybe you can do it with a bit of role play. That is something which has worked very effectively, especially if the child is having some problems with impulse control, if the child is having some problems with hyperactivity. So the role play is something, as a very effective strategy, where you actually sit across and take turns, and you pretend play the entire situation which she goes through with her peers. So then she has a model on which she can model her behavior. She knows that this is the way it has to be. And then she may be much more amenable to actually doing it that way when she is actually in the presence of her peers. So make some concessions sometimes. Maybe you could just empathize and say, yes, okay, you didn't want to share at that point, rather than, we always tend to, oh, you please share, you please share, how can you not share? So we always tend to kind of antagonize the kid further when that child is already in that non-sharing mode. So maybe if you could just empathize and teach them the appropriate behavior, and by role play, and then maybe they would be better expected to follow it when actually the situation is demanding so.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Our next question comes from Gigi Naresh, whose first daughter is 5 years old and her second child is 2.5 years old. She says they keep fighting, and sometimes it really goes like it crosses the line. They get really aggressive. My son is always he always copies whatever my daughter is doing. In such a situation, I don't know how to handle both of them. They're both copying each other, and at the same time they're getting very very aggressive with each other. Please suggest me some positive ways to handle them.
Right. So Gigi is having a 2.5-year-old and a 5-year-old. Yes, it is quite expected that at this age, the 2.5-year-old is going to learn by imitation. Children are copycats, right? They're going to see who is around them, and they are going to. That's how they learn, because imitation is a very important part of their pre-learning. Prerequisite learning skill at this point in time, right? See if you can, like I said, very important, put in a structure, because children know what to look forward to from hour to hour. That is a very important part, because especially in these days where they are at home, there is no structure, right? So these the children with lack of structure are the ones who find it much more tougher, right? See that he is getting both of them are getting, of course both of them are getting a good healthy diet where there are the proper amount of nutrients. See that they are getting good physical activity, some exercise, and see that they are getting a good sleep, see that the screen time is balanced. So when you do all of this, uh, the structure which is incorporated may help them deal with. And that, of course, at the end of it, of course, you need to give them certain concessions, given their age, that they are going to be imitating, they are going to be modeling each other, they are going to be, but of course you need to see to it that the good time they have with each other is much more. So you also set in some limits, set in some natural consequences, convey to them, communicate to them that aggression is something which is not allowed. Okay, you can feel angry, but you can't hurt her. So, like I said, see if you can communicate. So, I think this helps, because a child does not know when he's angry what is he exactly supposed to do. So, he'll hit out. This is what a lot of children are doing these days. They don't know. So if we tell them that, okay, it's okay for your brain to flip, it's okay to feel angry, but these are some strategies which you could employ if we train them in those, right? Mindfulness, a simple mindfulness activity, is something which has been really really shown to make kids less aggressive, make them more in control. So if you could practice a small mindfulness, a mindful listening activity, if you could practice some gratitude with a ritual with a child, so all of these go a long way in decreasing aggression in children, and making them much more amenable to playing together, not have those mood swings and all of that.
Dr. Vidya, you spoke of mindfulness and the gratitude ritual. If you could just talk a little about, the gratitude ritual and how can parents inculcate this in their daily routine, that would be really helpful.
Right. So this is something which is, I think, these kind of values are not taught to the child so much. There is so much of a stress on academics and other things these days. So a simple thing which you could actually do is, at the end of the day, typically when you're all relaxed and you can incorporate it into your bedtime ritual, where each of you talk about one thing which brought a smile to your face, one thing which you are thankful for. So gradually this the children get trained to looking at the positives. The children get trained to looking at what they need to be grateful for. Otherwise children these days, they get everything, right? So there's so much entitled and they don't really learn this. So we actually tell them, we make it a part of the daily routine, so that they notice more things. So it could be something so simple as, I got a cup of hot chocolate, or I got to play with my friend, so you took me. So they are trained to notice this and give thanks for it, and then pass on the good deeds also, right? So this really has been shown to help in across all age groups. So we ourselves at home, we have a small gratitude ritual where we every day at the end of the day we say thanks. So this is the gratitude ritual.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vidya. I'm sure this will be helpful for a lot of us. Dr. Vidya, how can parents channelize mood swings? If you could share some strategies, effective strategies that can help parents channelize their children's mood swings.
Right. So at that time, I think when the child is in the middle of a mood swing, I think it is important to empathize. Maybe you could say, yes, I can understand you're feeling angry, or maybe they just need to be held at that time. Maybe they just need to be hugged at that point in time so that they can get out of that red zone at that point in time. See if doing some physical activity, some small thing, you go for a walk, see if that helps, right? See if some amount of distraction helps. Like, what does a child like to do? Does a child is a child someone who likes to draw, someone who likes to paint, someone who likes to color, right? So then he gets to do these once he is just out of that red zone. So I think just empathizing, acknowledging, setting limits, and then of course giving him so many things. Like, we tend to say don't do this. Instead, if we could give them the alternative option of what we want them to do, like we don't want them to run across the road, cross the road. So if we also need to tell them, rather than saying don't do this, don't do this, we also need to tell them, yes, it would be nice if you could play quietly in the backyard for half an hour, right? So we have to give them the alternatives. We have to give them different activities, and the structure is very, very important. So during the day, if we are able to put in a mix of different activities, that helps a lot to channelize and equilibrate their mood much, much better, right? So do see that you have a structure in place, especially for children who are so much creatures of routine and structure. They benefit a lot from that.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Our next question is from Anu. Hi, Anu. Hope you're doing good. Thank you for joining us today for this live. Anu says, my 5-year-old son is being very stubborn from the last 5, 6 months. Please help me how to manage his behavior. And Dr. Vidya, if you could just also talk about how the entire lockdown and the pandemic has had an impact on, such behavioral changes in children.
That's just what I was coming to, because the pandemic has really, really affected adults' moods, of course, but children's moods in a lot of negative ways. They are anxious. They are not able to vocalize it. Some of them are just irritable. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to expend their time. They are not getting to interact with their peers. So all of this, and of course, the screen time, the excessive. So in the beginning, so, the guidelines were just emerging, and even a lot of experts said that, okay, it's okay, cut yourself some slack, it's okay if they have some screen time. But now that screen time has got to be so much more than is recommended for children in that age group, right? So this um, pandemic has resulted in so many of these behavioral changes. The most common is irritability, the mood swings, anxiety, their the sleep disturbances secondary to these, right? So some things we also need to do is see, are they exposed unnecessarily to a lot of negative news? Are they exposed to a lot of, because that's what we hear in the media all along, right? We just thought we were getting back to a better shape of things, and maybe schools will start. A lot of parents were looking forward to that, and then again we know that the cases have all started increasing. So when we give those kind of that kind of communication, the child is like, oh, it's so conflicting. You told me yesterday I could go out and play, and today again you're saying there's going to be a lockdown, or there is going to be a more of a restriction, right? But we need to keep the channels of communication open. I think that is very important, so that we know what is going on in the child's mind, and is he anxious, what are his thoughts, is he, because children, they will catastrophize things more, right? Because They don't know, and they are taking, of course, another very important thing is they are taking the body language of the adults. So they will see, as parents, you are setting the emotional tone in your house. So it's very important that what is the face you are conveying to your child about this entire thing. Then the child will feel more in control when you are communicating with him, when you're telling him it's okay to feel like this, but then you are redirecting some of the inappropriate behavior or the some of the behaviors which you don't want him to have. So I think this is a very fine balance which as parents we have to learn how to work.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, Vara Lakshmi had earlier asked a question, and this is Vara Lakshmi's second question. She has a 4 years, 6 months old daughter, and she says some kids channel cartoons like Peppa Pig, Tom and Jerry, etc. Is something my daughter always wants to watch. Though I have restricted by making her understand it's not good for eyes and also for her brain development. She understands that, but she becomes sad by telling as she didn't know what to do. She finds craft activities, painting, drawing a little boring after some time and gets back to cartoon watching. That's what she enjoys. She does not prefer repeated ones. I put variety and add different activities in her learning and play methods, but nothing really seems to excite her besides cartoon channels. If you could share with me some ways in which she can get to constructive learning activities, such as what she's mentioned, craft activities, painting, it would be really helpful.
Right. So Varalakshmi, I think here it is very important to kind of have a family vision on screen time. So what are the limits you are setting on your child's screen time? And here it is also important to remember that children learn by modeling. So they are also looking at you to set an example, right? But here it seems that you have been trying to get her interested in a lot of activities like more of art and craft activities, which is not really taking to, because here what is happening in children these days, they are getting their the neurotransmitters, the dopamine, so they are getting it at the click of a button. So they're less inclined to doing other activities, some maybe some physical exertion, which is why physical activities have gone down, right? So the they have got so used to that this feels like hard work for them because they're getting it things so easily. But gradually, if you could build up her interest, maybe you have to find out what is something which interests her more. So maybe it could be a reading activity. So maybe while you're reading, you kind of tend to make it more interesting, make it like a drama where she says something, one sentence, you say one sentence. Try and get her interested if possible in nature. Maybe she's more of an outdoor person, maybe she's more of an explorer kind of person, right? So there are simple things like if you're walking down the garden and you pick up different kind of leaves, so that could be something, right? So children these days, they get to play so less with the sticks and stones, so they are more of gadget persons, they're more of cartoon persons. But of course, that's not something which is desirable. So I think we have to expose them to a wide range of activities. If art and craft is not really her cup of tea, there is so much she can learn from other things like just exploring natures, just looking around. So these are the kind of activities you would try and see. Reading activities, uh, maybe you can have a small circle time activity where you're making up a story. So you say one sentence, she says one, the other person in the house says one. So this could be a kind of thing which triggers off her imagination and she starts enjoying it better.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Monica Sharma, who had earlier asked a question around her daughter playing, games and fighting over her turn, has another question. She says, um, "My daughter wants elder friends to agree with her, and she also persuades them to play with her. She comes inside the house every now and then, and all she wants is to play to basically have people agree to what she's saying. Now, how do I deal with that situation?
Okay, so again, I think this is a phase which some children commonly go through, where they want to, they always want to be winners, right? So they want everyone to agree to what their wish is at that point in time. And so, is there, are they getting having a kind of role model who is also very more competitive and wants to be winning all the time? That's one thing you would need to check on, right? And you need to, the more, so the more you could try and convince them, the more they are not going to do that, like sharing. So the more you tell them, oh, you need to share, you need to, so maybe see if you can go on the back foot and say, oh, I understand that you find it difficult to share. I understand that yeah, you want to be the winner, or you want it as per your wish. So then maybe they may open up and tell you the reason why is that, or you know what is there in their head exactly. So see if you can try the other way, rather than telling them do this which you must have tried, and they are, she's just not listening, your daughter's just not listening, Monica. So see if you can take it on the back foot and see and empathize, and so then she tries and conveys what's exactly going on in her mind. And it doesn't seem like she's doing what you want her to do, but she's actually doing what she wants to do. See if you can get it, you know take it on a different track and try and do it that way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vidya. Bela Sheikh has a 9-year-old daughter, and Bela says, my 9-year-old daughter sometimes would just not speak with anyone and go to her room. She would just go to her room and sit there for hours. She would not come out of the room even on being called repeatedly. She doesn't like to mingle with age mates. On being asked, she says she doesn't like talking to anyone. Please guide me. What could be the reason for the sudden change in her behavior and her mood swings? I'm really concerned about her well-being. How can I, make her open up with me and, in fact, with also her age mates?
Right. Bela's daughter is going through a phase where she is, she wants to be more to herself, and she doesn't want to interact. Now, if this is a change from her usual behavior, it could be, as I see it, because of several reasons. But one of them, like I said, is because they also have hormonal changes. So it's not only at 11 and 12 where they are going through the pubertal changes, they also have adrenarche where they are going through these mood swings related to these physical changes a bit earlier. That is typically around the age of 7 8 8 9, right? That could be a reason. That said, if we also definitely need to look into what is her need at that time. Is she having very repeated mood swings? Is it interfering with her ability to do her day-to-day functioning? Then we need to definitely look into it, see if she is going through some anxiety issues, some mood issues, some depressive issues. We need to actually understand what is going on in her mind at that point in time. So, and very commonly here, I would like to say that if we are looking at mood disorders, they are also accompanied by a lot of biological signs. Like, for example, sorry, there would be sleep disturbances, appetite disturbances, there would be some physical complaints. So we need to be aware of these so that we can track them better, and then maybe seek professional help if required. But if it is a sudden change, then maybe you could just try and communicate with her, and try and connect and empathize with her, and then she may open up and tell you what is exactly going on in her mind.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, what are some things that parents should not do when the child is cranky and is going through a bad mood phase?
Right. So here I would say that the first thing is please don't join in your child's tantrum. Right. So if you are yelling, he's in the red zone, he's yelling, and you also start yelling, it's just going to get into a yelling match. So don't join in the child's tantrum. Don't criticize the child or devalue and disrespect, but I think it's very important at all points to be respectful even when the child is at his lowest point, right? And don't threaten something which you know you're not going to carry through. Like for example, you say, oh, you talk back to me and you shouting at me, you're grounded for a month. You're not going to carry it through, right? So don't give these kind of threats on the spur of the moment, which you know that it is not very practical to carry through. So the child learns that, yeah, you're not a very good disciplinarian, right? So these are some things you should definitely avoid when the child is having a tantrum.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, what is the role of maintaining the right environment? On the from the parent side, the role of maintaining the right environment at home to help your child deal with mood swings.
Right. Of course, it's very, very crucial because the parents or the adults at home are the one who are setting the emotional tone in the house, isn't it? So if you are showing or you are yourself going through a lot of roller coaster of emotions and you're wearing your emotions on your sleeve, you are yelling at those times, or the child learns that these are appropriate ways, rather than knowing that this is not a very appropriate way. It's okay to have different varieties of emotions, but it is not okay to express them in an inappropriate way, like for example by yelling or by tantruming or by kicking your younger sister. So this is what the child has to learn. The child has to know that it's okay, you can have different emotions, I understand. So you're empathizing with him, right? But at the same time you are redirecting his behavior. So an appropriate environment at home, which is very sometimes it feels very difficult because there are so many things on your mind, and the pandemic is going on, everyone is at home the whole day, so parents are having a tough time of it. So very important, self care. Parents, when they devote some time in their self care, their physical self care, their emotional, their spiritual, their social self care, they are much more likely to maintain the correct kind of environment in the home, to avoid these kind of mood swings, these kind of ups and downs, to accept them when they do happen. They will be in a much better position.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, how can you get to know as a parent the triggers for a child's mood swings?
Right. So I think here again, depending on the age of the child, it could be, like I said, it could be any of the halt, the hunger, anger, loneliness. Is a child having because his peers are not there, he's not able to convey. So I think in different ways, when he is not in the middle of a tantrum, you have to build up your channels of connection with the child. That is how you would be much better able to recognize the exact trigger, what is happening. So it is important to build in that bank account of so many yeses when the child is much more ready to accept a no, right? So I think connection before correction, so that you can exactly pick it up. Keep building the connection, have affirmative parenting, have positive parenting, so that you can build up the connection. You will be able to recognize, I'm sure, what is the reason behind this particular thing, what is exactly happening. So connection, 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 very important.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, what is the importance of intervention? Since we have been talking about, mood swings, There could be conduct disorders, there could be mood disorders, there could be ADHD, and different situations, different conditions in which a parent might need expert assistance. So if you could just throw some light on the importance of intervention and when one should seek an expert advice.
I'm very happy you brought this up, Shalini, because we are talking about mood swings here. It is very important to recognize that so many of these conditions, like ADHD, it could present with irritability, right? So obviously, it would be associated with the other behavioral changes of ADHD. Child would be hyperactive, he would be impulsive, right? If the child is having a mood disorder, then likely, again, like I said, he will have a lot of possibly biological symptoms associated with it. He will have a lot of unexplained maybe aches and pains associated with it. So these, when do we figure out that we need to approach a professional? When it becomes more pervasive. If it's just a temper tantrum, okay, once happening very infrequently, or it is attributable to whatever is happening in the environment, it is fine. But if it is lasting for a long duration of time, if it is interfering with the day-to-day functioning of the child, then please do approach a professional who will be able to give you a lot of intervention strategies, who will first rule out all of these factors which could be there in a child who is having persistent mood swings. So it's very, very crucial to recognize this and approach a trained professional for intervention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, please share with us three effective tips on dealing with this situation of mood swings in children.
Right. So the tips I would like to say is, if you can see that there is a need behind the temper tantrum, there is a need. If you recognize that and if you empathize with that, that is the first thing. Recognize there is a need and empathize with it. For this, if you could practice, the next step is active listening. So most of the time, even as parents, we are so busy. We are busy with our work. We are on the laptop. We are on the gadget. So we don't do active listening ourselves. If we can train ourselves to do that, I think we would be in a better position to recognize, as in the previous question, recognize the triggers. So if you could practice active listening, so just keep your phone aside and listen when the child is talking. Or if you're in the middle of something important, communicate that to the child. Tell him, yeah, give me 10 minutes, let me wind up my work, and then I will give you my full attention. And give the child more and more success experiences. So if you are giving him something which is which is beyond his capacity at that time, and he keeps feeling like he's a loser, he's much more likely to have those upswings of mood. So give him success experiences, show him in so many small ways that you are happy, you're proud of him. And these are the three main tips, I think, to build up those channels of communication with a child. And these are very effective tips, believe me, on decreasing the child's tantrums.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, some final, three final do's and don'ts for parents.
Yes. So I think the don'ts we already spoke about. Don't join in the child tantrum. Please don't demean or devalue the child. And don't threaten, which you are not going to be able to carry through. Right? The hot tips is, recognize that there is always a need behind the child's tantrum. Empathize with the child who is going through a tantrum. That will help him get out of his red zone much better. And before he is in the tantrum, before he is in the middle of that mood swing, if you could teach him some simple strategies which he could employ. You could just tell him, why don't you come sit it out and then we can talk, right? So these are the three do's.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Thank you so much for joining us today and helping us understand how to manage your child's mood swings and channelize them positively. You've given some very effective tips for parents, and I hope they make use of that. Thank you again. We'll be back again tomorrow with Dr. Vitika Kapoor to learn how to tackle with child's speech issues. Till then, please take care of yourself, and we'll see you tomorrow.
We can creatively come up with different sort of safe physical activities at home that you can do with your son.
We can use various oromotor exercises. We can make the child smell all kinds of food that we are cooking.
अगर आप ये 1 लीटर पानी में 1 चम्मच डालेंगे, उसे अच्छी तरह से उबाल के रात भर रहने दीजिए, दूसरे दिन छान के बच्चे को वो पानी पिलाइए, तो इससे भूख भी अच्छी बढ़ती है.
If you are having fibroids repeatedly and you've already undergone one surgery, it does not mean that you cannot conceive. You can.
So the baby weight is, it depends on the weight and build of the mother. So a mother who is small in build, short in height and very thin may have a very low baby weight and still the baby weight would be normal.